Vegas SportsCenter with Kevin Nagandi and Carl Ravitch.
A lot of headlines in the NFL today. The Eagles hiring Colts offensive coordinator Nick Sirianni as their new head guy. One of his priorities, figuring out the Carson Wentz, Jalen Hurts thing. That was just one problem in a 4-win season. Bucs wide receiver Antonio Brown, game-time decision for Sunday's NFC title game. He's got a knee injury. He hurt it against the Saints. Bruce Arians says Brown doesn't have to practice to play because, quote, he knows what he's doing. Love that. Former Washington quarterback Dwayne Haskins, a one-year deal with the Steelers. Washington cut the former first-rounder after Week 16. He wasn't playing well. A series of off-the-field incidents also contributed to the cutting. And the Rams are hiring former Falcons interim head coach Raheem Morris as their defensive coordinator. He replaces Brandon Staley, who took the Chargers' head coaching job after building the NFL's top defense. And with that, we say hello. That's Kevin Nagandi. I'm Carl Ravitch. We got a whole lot changing in this country now. New administration in Washington and new head coaches in the NFL. Generally not comparable in significance, generally. Unless, of course, you're talking to an Eagles fan, and I happen to be sitting right next to one here.
Yeah, on this day 3 years ago, the Eagles advanced to Super Bowl 52. Today, they hired a new coach with the hope that he could fix the quarterback issues in Philly. Nick Sirianni is his name, and his connection with the Eagles, he was Frank Reich's offensive coordinator in Indy, the same guy who was the offensive coordinator during that magical Super Bowl season for Philly where Carson Wentz was the MVP frontrunner before he suffered a devastating knee injury. Closer look at the 39-year-old Sirianni. He'll be the youngest Eagles head coach since legendary head coach Dick Vermeil. As the OC in Indy, the Colts ranked 8th in scoring over the last 3 seasons, and that was with a different starting quarterback each year. Sirianni spent time with the Chiefs and Chargers before joining the Colts coaching staff. NFL insider Adam Schefter is here alongside front office insider Louis Riddick. And Adam, so the Eagles, they interviewed 10 candidates, including Patriots offensive coordinator Josh McDaniels. So why did they go with Sirianni here?
Well, Kevin, I think the initial plan was to have more options than they did. And then Arthur Smith landed the job with the Atlanta Falcons, and Brandon Staley wound up with the Chargers, and their pool got reduced. And they still felt very comfortable and confident in the pool they had. But the number of options that I think they thought they would have at the beginning dwindled some. And they wound up zeroing in on a guy that they believe has the right temperament, the right disposition, the right talent, the right intelligence to bring the best out of the Eagles quarterback situation, whatever that is. And I think that they'd like to try to save and salvage Carson Wentz if they can. They have Jalen Hurts on the roster. Nick Sirianni's 39 years old. He's got a bright future in front of him. There's the list of candidates that they interviewed. It's a wide-ranging list, and they felt that they got a guy in the end that they were really comfortable with after spending the last week interviewing these candidates in Florida.
All right, Louis, the elephant in the room is what Adam talked about, that quarterback position and the questions. Carson Wentz, 4-year, $128 million extension. That begins this year, and he was benched for Jalen Hurts, the rookie in the final 4 games. So how do you view this coaching fit here with the quarterbacks?
Well, obviously they tried to, draw some parallels between, or rather draw a line between Frank Reich, Sirianni, and Carson Wentz, and I'm sure they are hopeful that is really what leads to the kind of relationship forming that will get Carson back on the right track. And it's anyone's guess as to how that's ultimately going to turn out. Look, I don't think Jeffrey Lurie is averse at all or shy at all, as far as taking big gambles on unproven commodities when it comes to coaches. Look, he didn't stumble upon. He discovered Andy Reid. He hired him out of Green Bay back in, the late 90s as a tight end coach quarterback coach who had never called plays himself. So, this is something that is a little bit out of the box, out of the ordinary, maybe catch. But if they saw something in their interview process that leads them to believe, along with, obviously tapping into Frank Reich, that leads them to believe that he would be able to develop a relationship with Carson Wentz, then you have to go with it, and you have to go ahead and take that gamble. But although, to it here than just Carson Wentz as well, he's also going to have to be able to establish a relationship with the entire football team. That's a lot for a young guy who has no head coaching experience, really has not been the guy who ultimately has been in charge of an offense overall. Obviously been Frank Reich's job. So this is a big gamble. I know that the Eagles fan are the one who's, you're sitting there going, how's this going to play out? Guess we're all just going to have to wait and see.
Okay, we'll see. He's 39 years young. Adam and Lewis coming right back. Carl has more. One opening left.
There is one. 6 of the 7 head coaching openings have been filled. The Texans still open. One minority coach has been hired. That's Robert Saleh. We'll hear from him later. No black coaches have been hired. Of note, Bucs defensive coordinator Todd Bowles interviewed for the Eagles job earlier this week. And Chiefs offensive coordinator Eric Bieniemy interviewed for 6 of the openings, including the Texans. Today, they both were asked about the process.
Here's the thing. It's always good to be mentioned and having an opportunity to pursue your dreams. And obviously, yes, I do want to be a head coach. But when it's all said and done with, my job is to make sure everything that we're doing right now is not to take away from the goals that we're trying to accomplish. My own personal business, when all that's time to take care of itself, that will take care of itself.
The biggest thing is there's only 32 jobs, and they're going to hire personal preference who they hire right now. You know, it's really an offensive league right now, the way things are going. And, you know, we got to win games to get to the Super Bowl. That's probably the least of my worries. But, you know, after that, there's a lot of qualified guys that deserve chances to be head coaches that are African-American.
Those are 2, certainly, of them. Back to the insiders. Adam, rightly or wrongly, some are suggesting they're connecting dots here. Bring Bieniemy to Houston, Deshaun Watson stays. What's the latest on the Texans search?
I don't think that who Houston hires will influence what Deshaun Watson winds up doing in the end. I think this is a case where the Texans have to make a decision what's best for them. And I think the NFL has to be watching anxiously because so far in this head coaching cycle, there have not been any black head coaches hired at all. The league has lost one, and Anthony Lynn hired none. There was a minority hiring in New York with Robert Saleh, but no black head coaches. And if Houston does not wind up hiring a black head coach, I don't know how people can't notice that, talk about it, and be incredibly disappointed, discouraged, deflated, whatever word you want to use about what goes on during a hiring process where the league emphasized this and came up empty-handed.
Right, no doubt. And Bowles and Bieniemy are taking the high road. Lewis, what's your assessment of the cycle of the coaches being hired so far?
Look, it's a continuing, merry-go-round that is really kind of like, it's defined by moving goalposts. The targets that these guys are having to hit are always constantly moving. At one time, look, a lot of times in this cycle and in previous cycles with Eric Bieniemy in particular, for instance, the word was, well, he doesn't call plays. Okay, well, let's see. In this hiring cycle, how many of these head coaches that are now head coaches that were on the offense in particular didn't call plays? Nick Sirianni didn't call plays. Dan Campbell, to my knowledge, didn't call plays down in New Orleans. But these two guys are head coaches now. Now, that's not to say that they're not qualified. And we all know that being a head coach is not just about calling plays, but it's the moving goalposts that people are starting to get frustrated, that African-American coaches and coaching candidates are starting to get frustrated with. Because when you see these kinds of things that are happening, and then people are telling you, well, these are the kind of things that you need to do. You need to be a quarterback coach. You need to be an offensive coordinator. You need to be a play caller. Then you see others who aren't African American who also aren't meeting those criteria but are still getting opportunities. I mean, how can you not be frustrated? How could you not start to question the process, the authenticity of the process, the meritocracy that it's supposed to be? But we all know that, look, Adam kind of alluded to it, and I've said it numerous different times, or rather Todd Bowles said it in his clip, rather. This is about personal preference. This is a very subjective thing. There are no steadfast criteria that any candidate has to meet. They could hire some guy off the street if they wanted to. It's about personal preference of 32 billionaires or multimillionaires who basically make the decisions that they want. And that is what we're going to be subject to as people who are trying to get these jobs from now until the end of time. And until their preferences change, we'll have this conversation over again, I'm afraid.
Appreciate your insight. Let's hope it happens before the end of time. That's Adam Schefter and Louis Riddick.
Right, but we continue to follow the developing story in Kansas City. Here's new video from today featuring Patrick Mahomes on the practice field for the second straight day as the Chiefs get ready for Sunday's AFC Championship game against the Bills. Mahomes took the majority of today's snaps, but remains in the concussion protocol. Andy Reid, after practice, on his quarterback.
So Pat looked good out there. He did a nice job when he was doing it, and looks like he's moving around well. He feels good. So it's just important that we follow the protocol, and that's what we're doing.
He looks like Pat to me. So He's been great in meetings. You know, he's fun. He's energetic. So you can always count on Pat being Pat.
Adam Schefter is back with us with much more on this. Adam, what's the outlook for Mahomes to play in Sunday's AFC title game?
Well, Kevin, they're encouraged right now, and they feel optimistic. The fact of the matter is he's still in protocol, and he has not been cleared officially just yet. The conference championship game is coming up on us. And again, he wouldn't be taking these snaps in practice if they thought he wouldn't be cleared through protocol in time to play in that game. But in addition to still being cleared out of protocol, Kevin, he also is dealing with a foot injury. And it's encouraging to hear Eric Bieniemy, the offensive coordinator, say he looks like Pat to him. That's what you want to hear, that's what you need to hear. But the fact of the matter is there are a couple of issues that are lingering, as there are with many players at this time of the year, as Patrick Mahomes heads into the conference championship game.
Okay, if he does start on Sunday, he'll be the first quarterback in NFL history